This episode is sponsored today by the book 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce. This book was written by kids. It's for kids. It's a coloring book. When you have a tragedy of divorce and you have young children who do not know how to express themselves, this coloring book, 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce, is the coloring book for them. Pick it up today at blendingthefamily.com or even on Amazon. 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce. Again, written by kids, for kids.
Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from dads hitting rock bottom, daughters watching their parents divorce, or even what is a good wine for couples to have while talking about finances. Here's your host, whose bleeding ulcer bleeds Chicago Cub Blue, Tommy Maloney. Holy cow.
Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. Man, that was sing-songy. Hello, welcome to the podcast known as Blending the Family. What is up with that? We are definitely not editing that out. Let's try this again, though. Hold on, let me grab a sip of tea. Oops, almost spilled it all over me. Welcome to the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. Much better. Much better. On this episode, we have a fellow dreamer, Patrick Boone. The name of his coaching business, it's a family coaching business called Fifth Dimension Coaching. But before I tell you more about Patrick, I want to tell you about, I'm sorry. Some people are irritated when they hear notes on the microphone. My notepad, my pen. Well, get over yourself. Why am I even holding this? My gosh. More tea. All right, here we go. I am super excited. Not just about our guest, Patrick Boone, but I was just a guest on a podcast, Be the Talk, which is hosted by Nathan Eckel. I hope I don't screw up Nathan's last name. But you can find him, and I'll put that in the show notes if I remember. I am really bad at saying, hey, I'm going to put that in the show notes, and I don't. But that's what you get when you're a solopreneur, when you're a one-person operation. You wear many hats. Right now I'm wearing a Chicago Blackhawks hat, if you wanted to know. But Nathan Eckel, again, he has this podcast called Be the Talk. He was kind enough to also record it on Facebook Live. If I was smart, I would figure that out. I think that could be something. I'll have to ask Nathan how to do that. But he interviews TEDx speakers, which, surprise, if you didn't know, I did a TEDx talk in June of 2015. And this is truly why, because like I said, he did on Facebook Live as well. This is why I have a face for podcasting. Because I rewatched the video. I'm going, oh my gosh, I have some kind of weird facial something going on. But it was a lot of fun. And I like the fact that occasionally I get to be a guest on somebody else's podcast. And he sent me the questions ahead of time, but I don't want to look at them. And this is probably where I screwed up at the end, the last question. But that's okay. I just like things to have organically. Just like on this podcast, I never send questions out to the guests because I want to hear natural responses. I want them to be in their own element. I don't want to just send out, hey, why did you start coaching? Stuff like that. What else is going on? Well, if you've been keeping up with my weekly series on the Good Men Project, I think we're up to week 5 of the title of the series, which is, I'm telling you right now, it's being recorded. I'm going to let you know it's going to be a book. Not sure how long, or if I'm going to do 52 weeks of this series or what. I don't know. But it will be turned into a book. I guarantee that. I really wish I had more good news about the current book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m., which was also the name of the TEDx talk that Nathan was asking me about, but I really don't have any news yet. I'm starting to freak out. I think that's my phrase right now, because I was working on this week's writing for the Good Men Project, and I noticed I wrote freaking out a couple of times. And yeah. So there you go. I don't know. I have really nothing else to report. I'm trying to think. I mean, right now, we've had rain the past 2 days here in northern Colorado, and it looks like the sun is trying to peek out. Oh, that's why, because as I just picked up this mug, I just want to let you know, if you go to either Blending the Family, what am I trying to say? Blending the Family's Facebook page, or My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. Facebook page, or even my Facebook page, Tommy Maloney, and you watch the video of Nathan interviewing me, you're going to see a coffee mug in my hand. And I hope it drives revenue. Because, or let me rephrase that. I hope people start asking me, well, what is that? What is that coffee mug? And I'm not going to tell you. Okay, I'll tell you. It's the logo of Generations Church here in Greeley, Colorado, where as a family we attend. And I thought it'd be kind of fun I've got other mugs, but I thought it'd be fun to have the Generations Church mug as I was being interviewed from Nathan on the Facebook Live. So there you go. That's all I got. All right. Patrick Boone. Like I said, he is a parenting coach, Fifth Dimension Coaching. On this episode, we're going to talk about fatherly advice from Patrick's dad. If I could read my own handwriting, what getting a project management certificate, how it helped him become a better dad, better husband. Why getting his project management certification was good for him. And this is another reason why I'm excited about talking with Patrick. We get to talk hockey. No. Okay, stop. Don't even think about stopping and not listening to this episode. And I'm going to tell you, I am going to probably get a lot of hate mail. I'm going to lose friends in the hockey parenting world. They're not going to be happy with me. And so Patrick and I talk about parenting with youth sports. And I was 100% honest with my how I feel about a lot of parents, including parents that are that my son played the what am I trying to say? Many of the parents that I know from even this past season. So again, we talk about Hockey Parenting 101. And here's some words of advice for you. Watch out for moose. Okay? That's all I'm going to say about that. Watch out for moose. Patrick Boone, Fifth Dimension Coaching. Please, however you get this podcast, ratings, reviews, that'd be great. It'd be awesome. I'll be your best friend. We'll be BFFs. Is I'm saying that right? I don't know. I might just take a nap right now and start my day over. All right, that's it. You have a wonderful day, And again, I'm going to keep using the Terry Crews line. Just remember, your success is my success. Oh, there goes a rabbit. So I want to ask you from your website, and I'm quoting you on this, and it says, I had a tendency... Hold on. There we go. So your quote says, my father always told me, eat the apple one bite at a time. I had a tendency to rush into things without thinking them through, which often led to trouble for me and my family. I had so many ideas, and I wanted to do them all.
Yeah.
Explain that to me. Explain that to the listeners. What was going on when, not only when you heard from your dad, eat the apple one bite at a time, assuming that a lot of us have heard the how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time theory.
Right.
So what was going on in your life that your dad was giving you that advice, and what did you turn that advice around into?
So I'll actually share a story from a report card I received from my grade 1 teacher, and she said that my mind was 5 minutes faster than my hand. And so that led to a lot of mistakes in my work because I was always thinking and wanting to get things done quickly. So I have always, I guess I've been what you would call a jack of all trades, maybe master of none, I don't know. Lots of interests. I've always had lots of interests. I could always do pretty much anything I put my mind to. I mean, I never did try to build a rocket by any stretch, but so maybe I'm not a rocket scientist, but in terms of sports, in terms of schoolwork, hobbies growing up. As I got older and in our marriage, still had lots of interest. I mean, I took a children's writing course. We had a business when we first got married. I had all sorts of home renovations, all sorts of stuff going on in my life, and I always wanted to try something new, and just I wouldn't think all the way through it, and then you get partway through and think, geez, I really don't want to do this. I'm getting tired of it, or this isn't what I thought it might be, or this is a lot harder than I thought, or I just didn't plan things out. I didn't think things through, and I just jumped in and did whatever it was that we had to do, and I've talked to my dad a few times about like home renovation. So I've renovated our home, and I'm still renovating the home. And I'm actually tearing apart things that I did maybe 20 years ago and thinking, what was I doing? I had no idea really what I was doing. And you learn over time. And Dad would share the same stories. He says, 40 years later for him, he's doing the same thing. He's tearing things apart and just wondering, what was I doing? What was I thinking at the time when I put this together? So what happened for me, when I took project management, I never was much for planning. I had tons of ideas, even like at work, I had lots of ideas. But I wouldn't be able, I'd promise on something and wouldn't be able to deliver because I didn't think it all the way through. So, I don't know, about 5 years ago, I got my project management certification. I got a job as a project manager, and so about 5 years ago, I got my certification in project management, and that really kind of opened my eyes to the benefits of slowing down, thinking things through, talking to other people who've been through it, and trying to plan for whatever you can. And that's in terms of time, in terms of resources, in terms of risks and so forth. So those are the types of things that I learned from getting my project management certification, and it has helped me be a better husband, a better boss, like a manager, a better father, because I tend to apply anything that I learn, any books that I read, I tend to apply across the board, however I can.
So give us some examples, Patrick, of once you got your project management certification, how did that help you first become a better father?
So I'll give you a for instance there. So one of the aspects of project management, and an often forgotten one in project management, is risk management. So risk management is managing things as best we can that may occur in the future, whether that's the near future or a little bit further away. Okay? So these aren't specific issues, but there may be some things that happen that could impact a project a month from now or 2 months from now or something like that. So we try to brainstorm those things and come up with a plan to deal with them, to manage them. So in terms of being a better father, I'd take, for instance, say I raised 2 boys, and they're 19 months apart, and they may ask to go over to a friend's place, and I don't know who the friend is, and so the risk is they're going to a spot that they don't share the same values as me, or they're going to a spot that is actually dangerous for them. I in my view, is dangerous. So as a way to, in this case, mitigate risk, I might insist that I drive them there and have a conversation with the parents so I can see where they live, what conditions they live in, and have a conversation and learn about who they are and what they're all about. And, just ask them questions. And I'm not putting the shining light in their eyes and give them a third degree by any stretch, but just having a conversation, trying to learn a little bit about them. So that's kind of a quick example of mitigating risk in this case. Another example might be as the boys grew up. My oldest is 18, my youngest is 17, and they may say, "Hey, Dad, can I borrow the car? I want to go to a party," we'll say. Okay. Well, driving in the day is different than driving at night. So if it was during the day and they want to get together with their buddies, I might say, yeah, go ahead, because the risk is low. There may be, a bad driver out there, but the risk is, there's a low probability of happening. So yeah, go ahead. But if it was at night, I might say, depending on the situation, get a little bit more information from them, or if we have a lot of moose out on the road, I might say, well, I'll take you there and pick you up.
Hold on. Did you say moose?
Moose, yeah. So there's a lot of people. Well, not a lot, but you normally hear from 1 or 2 people each year around this area who hit moose. The moose comes out on the road. And they hit the moose. I mean, the moose is 1,500 pounds, and it's a tall animal. And you take the legs out from under it, and it just basically its butt goes right through the car. I mean, you're dead instantly.
Well, I think you bring up a very interesting point when it comes to driver's ed, and that's probably something. It goes back to your risk analysis. Is that is something that, as parents, we might not even think about. I mean, obviously, in parts of the United States here, because you're in New Brunswick, Canada,
yeah,
those are things that you have to think about, and your experiences are very much different than, for example, my son is now 15. He's going through the process of, or as you Canadians would say, process. Had to throw it out there, Patrick. I'm sorry. I had to throw it out
problem.
there. But he has to go through his own skills now of learning how to drive. And for me, as a parent, I've got to experience this 3 different times with our kids. And each experience obviously is different, but you bring up a valuable point of the risk assessment, because you're thinking of things that, again, as a dad, as somebody who's got a student driver, I would never think of. I would never think of having to go, well, there are some moose out tonight, but I want to bring it back to the project management certification. Do you think that if you hadn't gone through that process, that some of the things that you're teaching your boys on how to do as life skills, do you think you'd have had the same outcome because of taking that class?
That's a fair question, I'm going to say no, and the reason why I'm going to say no is not because I was, a total idiot before taking project management, but what that course taught me, it brought risk management kind of out to the forefront of my mind as a methodology. In fact, one of my bosses had told me that I was very methodical, and that's so true. I never thought of it that way myself, but he's right. I am very methodical. So I take in information, and then I organize it in my mind, and then I try to apply it in my life. And it doesn't matter what type of information, whether it's an autobiography from somebody and someone who I respect or I can learn a lot from, or whether it's the project management course or life coaching course or whatever. I try to apply whatever I learn to the different aspects of my life. And so I'm going to say, to answer your question, in one word, it would. Your question was, would it be different, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, yes, it would be different, because I wouldn't have had that context. I wouldn't have had that whole concept that really kind of stood out to me. And I mean, I very rarely do I say, well, I think there's going to be moose out today. I just said that for an example, but
no, it's a valid example of, not just as a parent, Patrick, but things that we really don't think about. And, it goes back to your other example of, if one of your boys was going to visit friends and you weren't familiar with those parents, you're talking about old-fashioned values that, quite honestly, and not to pick on, Canada versus the United States, I just think it's a society thing that we don't think about old-fashioned values anymore. And the fact that, you're taking the time to, again, talk about what your boss was talking about in simple terms is you're analyzing this. Okay, so my son has a friend. I haven't met the friend. I haven't met the parents. Let's look at the big picture. And nowadays, I firmly believe, in my opinion, is that we don't take that time. We don't take a step back. And again, not to shine the light again on our kids and give them the fifth degree and go, where were you and all that. But times have really changed. And I was talking to somebody just last night. We were talking about when I was probably less than 10 years old, when I would go visit my dad, and I would just, somebody would either take me to the train or I'd walk to the train station, purchase my ticket, get on the train. My dad would meet me at the train station in downtown Chicago. I'd spend the weekend with him, and either one of two things. Either my mom would drive down and pick me up, or I'd hop back on the train and somebody would meet me at the train station once I got to my destination. That would be unthinkable these days, Patrick, that some young kid would get on a train, other than, I don't know, the first thought in my mind is unless they're running away. But you're bringing old-fashioned values, in my view, back to the forefront that we really need as parents, also as coaching, to bring that to help our clients out as well. But I want to ask you, all right, so you didn't take the the project management class. We're going to play pretend. We're going to play the what if game. One of your sons say to you, "Hey, Dad, I want to borrow the car. It's, 8 o'clock at night. It's dark. Are you just going to then throw them the keys?"
Probably not. No, I want to know where they're going, how long they're going to be. Who they're going to be hanging out with.
But what's different? But what's different, Patrick? If because you did take a project management class, what was the different analysis in your mind of looking at the big picture of when your boys do come to you and ask you, can I borrow the car or other types of, parenting situations? What's changed because of taking that course?
So specific, I guess, what you're looking for here. And it's tough. It's tough right now to answer that question, Tommy, because time has also passed, right? And they're asking different questions. And you know what? I will tell you. It's probability. So one of the aspects of analyzing risk on a project is what is the probability that whatever this event is actually is going to happen. And so where we used to potentially be like helicopter parents, I wouldn't say neither one of us really were helicopter parents, where we kind of hover over them and watch everything they do. I wouldn't say that, because we certainly let them explore and play and so forth, and we have a big yard. But it did bring out probability. So an example might be, I don't know, Frig. Carrying it, and this is off the top of my head, so I'll say it just for the sake of saying it. So, kid's 7 years old, and you say, "Can you bring me that knife from the kitchen into the living room?" Right? Well, what's the probability that he's going to slip and fall and shove the knife through his gut? Pretty low probability, right?
Right.
But somebody who's a constant worrier may not even ask their kid to carry that knife in from the kitchen to the living room for fear that they start running and trip and, shove it through the gut. So, again, that's kind of to the extreme here in terms of an example, but it really did make you think, because I'll kind of give you another situations that my wife, she thinks about all the things that could happen. And, if he does this, if they go do this, well, geez, and some of the stuff was like pretty far out, right? And I used to, so when she would say something far out, I would dismiss everything else. Whereas after taking the training and other things that happen in our lives between our marriage and so forth, I would say, when she brought up those things that were not very likely, I'd say, okay. She'd bring up 5 things, and I'd say, okay. In my mind, I would say, not probable, wouldn't happen. That's a good point. I never thought about that. And yeah, we better handle those 2. So it allowed me to. So it actually impacted our relationship as well as in terms of our marriage, because I didn't dismiss it and make her feel bad anymore. I took what she said, but in my mind I thought, well, that's a low probability, so I'm not too worried about that. But these other 3 that she mentioned, yeah, that's a good point. We better deal with them. So my relationship with my wife improved, and we were a little bit more reasonable with how we handled different situations. So I guess that would be a good change there.
So what advice can you give to couples that in that that's a perfect situation where you do hear something from your spouse and you just want to roll your eyes at them and just go, "Are you freaking kidding me?"
Yeah.
What life lesson have you learned to not not necessarily say that you would do that, Patrick, but what life lesson or marriage lesson did you take out of the project management into bringing it into your marriage?
I don't know if I can attribute just project management to this, because I think I mentioned to you that my wife and I went through a pretty rough time there a few years ago where we almost split. And we learned a lot through that healing process about each other, about personalities and how they impact marriages and so forth. And kind of going back to what I was saying before, I'm a dreamer. I would come up with a bunch of ideas, and her first reaction would be, it wouldn't work, and here's why. So I would constantly feel defeated. So after we went through our situation and we kind of learned how each one of us works, as for me, my own personal, I guess, improvement in that area, it was similar to what I was saying before. I would come up with this amazing new idea that I wanted to try, and she would come up with 5 reasons why it wouldn't work. And I would say, okay, no, that I can fix that issue. I can fix that issue. That's a good point. I better think about that. These two, boys, I really better reconsider this, because those are really good points. I never thought about that. On her side, she changed how she delivered the message. So she would not now say, quote unquote, that's a dumb idea and here's why it's dumb. She would say, have you considered? And so basically I'm using her thoughts to help me improve the quality of my ideas.
I had to laugh because when you said that you're a dreamer, that's me. That is me. My wife is very similar to your wife. And not necessarily to the point of being negative. I can just feel that whatever is coming out of my mouth is something that I'm like, I really didn't think this through. She's about to corner me, and I have no response other than, oh, crap.
Yeah. Yep. Been there.
Oh, that's funny. I have to laugh. Laugh. So, what other marriage license? I can't even speak now. What marriage life lessons can you also share with us that you've learned through the ups and downs of your own marriage?
Ooh. That's a big question.
That's why you're here, Patrick.
Yeah. Let me see. What are some things that I could share here? So I talked about the different personality types and how we kind of view the world. Another situation is values.
Ooh.
As people, we all value different things, right? We're all designed to see things differently. We're all designed to hold some things more dear than other things, and some things set us off worse than other things. So it's understanding. Once I understood what my wife's values were, I'm going to mark another one down here to talk about too while I think of it. So once I understood what she valued versus what I valued, our communication became much, much better, and we became much closer. She values quality. No matter what job that she's done, it's a very high quality job. And for me, I've come to appreciate quality much more, probably through living with my wife. And I've slowed down a lot from just living life and learning what I've learned. But especially earlier on in our marriage, being the dreamer and just kind of rushing into things, it was always, that's good enough. So you can just imagine that's good enough up against someone who values quality at a very high level. Didn't go over well a lot. And the problem is that we didn't learn to talk about it because we didn't want to hurt each other's feelings. And this is earlier before we went all through our stuff. So values, I guess, understanding what you value, understanding what your spouse values, and being open and willing to discuss your values and how they impact how you think and feel and react. Another huge lesson that we learned going through our situation was we were exposed to the five love languages.
Yes, excellent book.
Oh my goodness, did that ever shine some light on how we show appreciation for one another, how we should show appreciation for one another, and what's important to us, and how we show love. And that was a very eye-opening book for both of us. So learning what your wife expects and learning what your husband expects in terms of how you show love, I think is huge. Absolutely huge. I think that was a phenomenal. I'd rank that up there as probably the number one thing that we learned as we were going through our issues that really made an impact on our marriage.
Yeah, I'm making sure I'm writing that down and add that into the show notes, because that is such a brilliant way of looking at people, because we do. I mean, I don't forget, I had one job where we had a new boss, and she was asking how we like recognition. And of course, everybody has different ways of recognition. It could be, please let everybody know that I did this great job, or it could be whatever. As long as the team succeeds, I feel like I've succeeded. You know, different types of recognition, but love languages are different as well, because as you've learned through your own marriage, and what a lot of our listeners might not be aware of, is that just because you go out and get your partner, your spouse, you know, a nice bouquet of flowers, that might not be their love language. They might have just wanted a hug or a high five. You know, they don't really want things. They want emotion.
Yeah, exactly. That's so right.
I think I'm gonna quote myself on that.
That's right.
But things are good. Things are good with you and your wife. Obviously, after learning what each other likes and doesn't like, is that what was the progression as far as your own personal development of creating, you know, your coaching business, the fifth dimension coaching, and was this also part of creating your Facebook page, Parenting Junction? Is it Parenting Junction?
The Parent Junction.
The Parent Junction.
Yeah. So I'll share. So yeah, part of the background for working with parents was what we went through, and even the coaching business itself has been a bit of a journey in and of itself, really, because I got my life coaching certification about 3 years ago, and just kind of dabbled in it a little bit. I didn't really have a practice up and running like I am now, like I'm doing now. But I coached hockey, and you and I talked about this a little bit. I coached hockey. I've coached now for 10 years. I'll probably have to coach one more year, and then once my son is done, then I'll be done coaching. But there's about 3 years ago, I coached one of my son's team. There's a boy on that team, 14, 15 years old, and he was from a really rough upbringing. And his mother had left when he was young, and his father, I mean, you could hear him in the stands swearing at him, and it wasn't a good situation at all. And so I always kind of wanted to, make sure he was okay. Well, in between periods, one game, this is where we bring your players to the bench and talk about what's going well and what's not going well. He skated over to the other side of the rink, and I saw him talking to his father. So when he come back to the bench, I said, "What happened? Did you break your stick? Do you need him to go get a stick for you, or what's going on?" He said, "No." He said, I slammed my hand in the car door when I got here, and I wanted to show him the injury." And I thought, wow. In my mind, I didn't say anything other than, okay, I see now. But in my mind, I thought, wow, like, rough upbringing. His father was always at him for everything he did was wrong and it wasn't good enough and so forth. And it didn't matter what sort of a relationship I had with him as a coach to the player or as a coach to the boy himself. This is a tough, rough around the edges 14, 15-year-old, but he still had to go skate over to his father to show him the injury. Like that would be something that I would expect from a 6, 7-year-old or something like that. And it taught me that it doesn't matter what relationship I have with him, you can never, ever replace that connection that a boy or your daughter has with his parents. And not that I was trying to replace it, but I thought, wow, so that really helped me form my niche, who I wanted to work with, which was parents. I wanted to help parents be the best that they could be. I want them to have the skills. If they are feeling frustrated, if they're they feel like they're lost or whatever, I'd love to be that guy that they hire to help them out with their parenting, to help them out with their relationship with their spouse or other relationships. I work with them on like chasing after the dream, running a business. I've run businesses and so forth. So all that to say is that because of my wide range of knowledge and experience, I want to use that to help parents be the best that they can be, so they raise a strong next generation.
So I want to stop you there, Patrick, because we do have the hockey commonality, the hockey coaching commonality, the parenting of having kids that play sports. And, you bring up one of those situations where, and I hate to use hockey as an example because hockey in my family has done so much for me. Mm-hmm. It has brought me to be able to spend more quality time with my son because of hockey. I've met some great parents, some great coaches. I've got to coach some wonderful kids. I mean, I coached one kid 2 seasons ago, and I still have the card he gave me. And it was one of those cards that when I opened it and I read it, I just sat and cried because it was such a touching moment. And one of the things I wrote down as I'm listening to you talk about this young man and his relationship with his father is that when the situations arise for me where I'm not coaching, where I'm just a dad, I don't sit by the parents. I try to be as far away from the parents. And I'm sure some of the parents that don't really know me, and I blame myself for not really engaging, but I'm very much an introvert, and it takes a lot for me these days as I've grown older. But one of the things I wrote down is I'm in the vision that I have of these other parents, thinking I'm some kind of aloof parent because I'm a goalie dad. And, as goalie dads, we're different already because our kid is the one in the net trying to stop the puck. And you have that feeling that every time your child gives up a goal, that all the parents are all looking at you going, see what your kid did? And, again, it's my own feeling. But I stay away from parents because they do give such a negative feeling of youth sports because they are in the stands yelling and screaming. And, I mean, I've seen parents who have played that sport, and I've seen parents who have no clue about the sport, and they're both yelling, and they're screaming at the top of their lungs, and they're not encouraging, which drives me nuts. And one of the things that I've always instilled into the parents when I was a head coach, and I would have that first, and this is me talking to right now. I'm not going to talk to you, Patrick. I'm talking to the parents out there. Your kids are not going to make it to the pros. I'm sorry to tell you that right now. Okay? Mm-hmm. What you need to understand as parents is what I would have that very first parenting meeting, and that is, I'm here to help your children with life skills. We're going to use the sport as a foundation, but we're going to teach them how to win, how to lose, how to work and be a good teammate, how to be okay to question parents. Because here's the thing I find fascinating, Patrick, is that, in my opinion, we put coaches too high on a pedestal where kids are afraid to challenge a coach. I'll give you an example. So this past season, one of the things that drove me nuts was there was no practice plan. The kids show up, and it just seemed that there was no concept of, all right, we have an hour of ice time. And for you parents that don't know about hockey, ice time is very valuable and very expensive. So if you don't have a plan, or if you go to the rink and let's say the first drill you're running with the kids and the kids just don't get it, instead of yelling and screaming that it's their fault, maybe you didn't demonstrate it. Maybe you didn't explain it properly. And this is why I want the ability, and through coaches like yourself, not just hockey coach, but as a life parenting coach, Patrick, to let kids know it's okay to ask an adult, I don't get it. I don't understand it. Can you please explain it to me? I mean, as adults, if I'm sitting at a job and, my boss explains something to me and I'm sitting there going, I don't get it, chances are they're going to hopefully put their ego outside and go, oh, maybe I'm not explaining it properly, and figure out a different way of saying it. So that's me on my pedestal to all youth parenting parents.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. There's a couple things that actually stood out for me. You said you're an introvert, and I've always tested as an ambivert. So I totally enjoy my alone time, but I can stick my neck out there and do what I need to do, in a group setting or whatever. But I would much prefer one-on-one. I also am a goalie dad. So my oldest son was a goalie. My youngest son plays center. So I totally get the goalie dad thing. And yes, we can be a little strange. Can't we?
A little.
What I tend not to do, I'll give you for instance, this past season, I won't even get into the story, and everybody says I didn't do it, but I got suspended for 3 games for asking the ref, and I'm seriously telling you, I asked him to start making calls or somebody was going to get hurt, and I ended up getting tossed. I mean, it was a ridiculous situation that we were going through, but whatever. Anyways, I got suspended for 3 games. For those 3 games, I sat with the parents. I sat right in the middle of them. And because, I got friends that we hang out with there too, and outside of hockey and so forth. But I I didn't need to or didn't want to, I guess, kind of sit it off by myself because, I don't know. I guess I just wanted to be around the parents and I like to hear the cheering and be kind of joking back and forth with the parents and so forth. So I guess in that respect, I'm a little bit different in terms of, now, when you say you wanted to go, like kind of keep yourself segregated a little bit, was it just because you wanted to be alone, or was there any other reason in in behind the scenes you didn't really want to get into any sort of an argument or anything based on something that was going on the ice or something like that?
Well, for me, it's just simply to be point blank. It's the stupidity of some of the parents, and it's not just saying it's our parents, but it's the other team's parents too. I mean, as you're aware of, Patrick, and a lot of the listeners are, hockey is a very physical sport, and
yes.
You think that as parents, your job, and again, not every single parent is like this, but I can relate to it because I've played hockey, I've coached hockey, and I want to say I'm somewhat of an expert on this, but this is where parents get overly vocal that they think that if they start screaming, hit 'em, hit 'em, hit 'em, is the right thing to do. And it's not. And
right.
This is why like I said, Patrick, I have to step away, because that, in my opinion, again, shows the ignorance of parents. It shows that they have been conditioned by possibly other coaches, by other so-called leadership within the hockey community, that's what you're supposed to do. And it's not true.
Right.
Any sport, if you break it down to the minutia, I look at baseball. I get into these wonderful, I really mean wonderful arguments with my cousins back in Chicago, because we compare National League Baseball with American League Baseball. And the biggest difference, if you're not familiar with, is that in the National League, the pitchers hit. In the American League, you have what's called a designated hitter, meaning the pitchers don't hit. It's different. I'm a huge Cub fan, so that they play in the National League. Right. And a couple of my cousins are huge Chicago White Sox fans. So we get into these arguments, and it's just the one little thing. Pitchers should hit versus pitchers shouldn't hit. That's not their job. But going back to using the hockey analogy, is there are more things going on during a hockey game, for example, than just having to go out and hit. There are so many things that, another example, my son and I yesterday were watching the Washington Capitals and Columbus Blue Jackets play. And I love that earlier quote from your dad, because the quote I used that I borrowed from Darren Hardy, who used to be the publisher of Success Magazine, was, and this is one of the things I would say to the kids, and of course they would give me that deer in the headlights look, but I would say to them, how many in this locker room have ever been bitten by an elephant? And they all look at me again like I have a third eye. And I say to them, how many times have you ever been bitten by a mosquito? And they're all like, many times. Well, it's the little things in life that get you. And so, like I said, my son and I are watching this professional hockey game, and Washington scored because of one of those little things. And that little thing was not having enough fast momentum on a shift change. You could see these professional hockey players making a lot of money lollygagging back to the bench. And those are the little things that parents just don't see. all they focus on is my kid needs to hit that other kid. No. And that's where this comes from, Patrick, is that this is why I had to relegate myself, because I just couldn't deal with, I could feel myself getting angry at parents, and I would have to take several deep breaths and just walk away. And it just came to the point where I said, enough's enough. I can't do this anymore.
Right.
So you've been like other guests on this podcast trying to analyze me, so you can analyze me all you want, Patrick. I think you're on mute, Patrick.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I don't need to analyze it all. It's the other thing that I've learned is that we're all different. We all have different, I'm there with you as far as the coach goes. There's, I never had to deal. Did I ever have to deal with that? I don't think I ever had to deal with that sort of mentality. I mean, I've always had pretty good parents. I mean, not to mention that I've dealt with parents for sure. There's been issues, but not that type of issue. I think most from that perspective, I've never had to deal with that sort of behavior from parents because they pretty much understand it. Maybe it was because, we kind of set the standard up front, or I don't know what. I never had to deal with that, but I understand. I know of coaches who have had to deal with that. That sort of mentality, and it is tough. But no, as far as analyzing you, there's no need. Don't have the time to do that anyways.
Oh, you're funny. I like that. You don't have the time. Yeah, we don't have the time. It would be hours, days, months.
Yeah, for sure.
So, tell the listeners about your Facebook page.
So my coaching business is that's what you're talking about?
The Parenting Junction.
Oh, the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started a group, and it's actually changed a couple of times. I just back up just a little bit. So back in September, I signed on with a coach who helps coaches get their business off the ground. And so I signed up with him, went through his program, and one of the things that we talked about in his program was starting a Facebook group to bring in people of like mind and start working with them and interacting with them and connecting with them. And so I started the Facebook group back in October. It's gone through 2 name changes. The last name change everybody seemed to resonate with, and so I've kept that, the Parent Junction, and you can find that at theparentjunction.com. And it's just a spot where I do Facebook Live, so I have Facebook video lives there where I talk about a subject that was near and dear to my heart, or something that happened that day that I think might be helpful to parents. I've got articles in there. Other parents are starting to post questions and articles and thoughts. And so it's just a place for parents to connect, support each other, ask for advice, and just, like I said, just connect. And that's why I have the Parent Junction. The banner is a set of train tracks and a train coming down and a bunch of tracks intersecting. It's that junction where trains come in and a lot of people interact, and that's what that's all about. So that's why I started that group.
Is there something that you've noticed because of the group, because of creating that Facebook group, as far as what parents are asking more and more about? Is there something that you see that either something that's common or something you sit back and go, even I haven't thought of that?
Not specifically to the group, but I am a member of other groups. But you know what? I'm actually going to share something, and I shared a post on it a couple of nights ago, but something my wife actually found, which I'd never considered from a mom's perspective. Obviously I'm a dad, and think like a dad, act like a dad, whatever that means. But I never really considered the deep things that moms go through from the time of birth to the time of the kids graduating. And she shared an article with me privately in Messenger, which was it was a wow moment for me. I would never have thought that moms would go through that level of hurt and despair over some things that I would never even have considered. And so I thought, wow, I mean, these are the types of things that I can help with. If they don't have support from a husband or if they're, whatever their situation is, if they need support on some of these things, it's something that I can help with.
So what was the gist of the article?
Well, I knew you were going to ask that, so just let me get into Facebook here, because it's a lot of very detailed things. Just take 1 second here and let me get into Facebook.
And if you can also, would it be okay if you send me that article and I can put that in the show notes too, Patrick?
Sure. Actually, are you in my group?
Yes.
Are you in the Parent Junction? Okay.
I am.
I don't know if I wrote it there. I'm just taking a look down through. I don't know if I posted this in the... No, I mustn't. Okay, just let me take a quick look here. Yeah, Facebook's acting up. Oh, boy. Here it is right here. Okay. So it is, I posted about it on April the 20th, and it's an article from herviewfromhome.com. And maybe I'll tag you in the post. You want me to tag you in the post?
Yeah, and I can just copy the link then.
Okay, I'll tag you in the post. And you'll see the post, but it was just kind of, yeah. So I'll give you a couple of pieces of I'll read an excerpt here. That joyful sound will soon be a distant memory, replaced with this. And then she starts. Gained more than 25 pounds during your pregnancy? You'll never lose it, fatty. Had a labor full of complications or a C-section? Your body failed you and your baby. Formula fed? Baby will have a low IQ and be sick all the time. Breastfed for only 6 weeks? Quitter. Nursed into toddlerhood? Freak. So it just goes through the things that moms go through, and she's got a whole list of them here. And I never would have considered that. But I can so understand them feeling that way, because moms are so connected to their kids. I mean, dads are too, but I mean, this life came out of their body, so they have that connection, and I can see them being very sensitive about this, and it really struck home for me. So those are some of the things that she tackles there. And like I said, I'll tag you in the post if I can. I don't know.
So
if not,
you say that your wife found this article?
Yeah.
And what was that conversation like with you and her talking about that? I mean, obviously, like you were saying, this was a huge eye opener, but what was it from her perspective that really resonated with her?
Well, for her, she's a woman of little words, and she's getting better. But I don't mean little words. I mean few words is what I meant. She can use big words.
Does she give you like the look? Do you get the look a lot as well?
Yeah, sometimes. And that was one of those times. She's like, "Yep, absolutely. I dealt with a lot of that stuff." When she was coming up through, like she just never felt like it's like the self-esteem issues on steroids. It didn't matter what decision she made or what problem she had. She always felt like a failure and so forth. And again, because we never talked a ton through the first years, I didn't really know a lot of this stuff. I didn't know that level of detail. And so since we've gone through our issues, the talking comes a lot more easily and natural to both of us now. And so I'm learning some things now, and after 20 years of marriage, that I wish I had known 20 years ago. But that's life, and you get on with it. But definitely got that look from her saying, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll definitely make sure that our listeners get that link in the show notes.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So how do you chat here? We're in. Here it is, right here. There you go. I just put it in the chat window for us.
Perfect.
For you.
Perfect. Yeah. All right, and Patrick, what's next for you? What can the listeners help you with?
What's next for me is building the coaching practice. So I'm just getting started with getting my name out there and communicating what I do, what I can do, how I can help. So I guess how parents can help right now is just connect. Let's just connect. I've got, like I said, the Facebook group. I encourage parents to join the Facebook group so they can learn about what I'm all about. And that's at, like I said, www.theparentjunction.com. And we can hook up on LinkedIn. I believe my username on LinkedIn is Coach Boone 73. Excuse me. We can hook up on Facebook. I've got Fifth Dimension Coaching, and that's all spelled out. So fifthdimensioncoaching.com is my website where you can learn a little bit about my coaching practice. So the biggest thing is now just getting my name out there and let's connect. And if it never costs to have a chat. And I'm not a salesman. If I can help, great. I would love to be able to help. But if you just want to chat, I don't mind chatting either. So let's just connect.
Patrick Boone, Fifth Dimension Coaching. I appreciate your time today, and you have now ended this, so you and your wife can go on your drive. Stay away from the moose.
That's awesome. Thanks very much, Tommy. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Well, thank you, Patrick. And again, you brought so much value to, and I hope, and I'm just gonna end with this, is that the one thing that drives me nuts about a lot of so-called coaches is that there's business coaches who've never started a business, or you've got someone in my space, the divorce coaches or blended family coaches that have never been married or are still happily married, but they really haven't gone through those things. Mm-hmm. So you sharing your stories about what you and your wife have gone through, I mean, that will impact so many people that, you've been there, you lived through it, but see how we've become successful afterward.
Right.
I think everybody's advice should be to go and get their project management certification.
There you go.
There you go. Patrick, thank you again, and we'll be in touch.
All right, great. Thanks, Tommy. Have a great day.
And like I said, stay away from the moose.
Yeah, will do.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening to Blending the Family. And we're sorry if Tommy offended you.
This episode is sponsored today by the book 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce. This book was written by kids. It's for kids. It's a coloring book. When you have a tragedy of divorce and you have young children who do not know how to express themselves, this coloring book, 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce, is the coloring book for them. Pick it up today at blendingthefamily.com or even on Amazon. 10 tips on how to survive your parents' divorce. Again, written by kids for kids.